6 months after the Battle of Sanctuary 7, Zara stood in the garden dome of New Haven Station, watching children from a dozen different species play together in the artificial sunshine. Little Star darted between the younglings, leading a game that seemed to involve chasing holographic butterflies while chirping with delight. The battle had lasted 14 hours and become the turning point of what historians were already calling the Compassion War, not because the Alliance had won decisively, but because the galaxy had watched in amazement as formerly enemy species worked together to protect civilians, the image of human medics treating wounded Frakari rebels while Draknari engineers repaired damaged Keltharian ships had spread across every news network in known space. "Still can't believe it worked out," said Captain Rodriguez, joining her at the observation railing. His converted freighter had rescued over 3,000 civilians during the battle, earning him a medal from the Colonial Authority and the undying loyalty of several Frakari clans. "Define worked out," Zara replied with a wry smile. "Half the galaxy is at war. 3 major trade routes are blocked by military patrols, and the Galactic Council hasn't had a productive session in 4 months. But the other half of the galaxy is learning to cooperate," Dr. Kim added, approaching with a datapad full of medical reports. "My clinic here treats patients from 47 different species. 6 months ago, most of them wouldn't have been in the same solar system without shooting at each other." It was true. New Haven Station had become a symbol of what the Alliance represented. Built in just 5 months through unprecedented cooperation between multiple species, it served as both a refugee center for those fleeing the war and a demonstration that different civilizations could work together for mutual benefit. "The numbers are remarkable," Dr. Kim continued, consulting her pad. "Interspecies cooperation incidents are up 1,200%. Joint research projects have increased by 800%. Even crime rates are down in Alliance territories because communities are actually looking out for each other." Speaking of looking out for each other, Rodriguez pointed toward the dome's entrance, where a familiar figure was approaching. War leader Krex had shed his armor for simple civilian clothes, but his warrior's bearing was unmistakable. He'd become the unofficial ambassador for the growing Frakari rebellion, which now controlled 37 worlds and showed no signs of slowing. "Honored friends," he greeted them in his much-improved standard. "I bring news from the Council of Free Worlds." The Council was the Alliance's attempt at democratic governance, with representatives from every member species voting on major decisions. It was chaotic, often gridlocked, and absolutely nothing like the efficient dictatorships that had dominated galactic politics for centuries. Zara loved it. "Good news or bad news?" she asked. "Both as usual," Krex replied with what might have been a smile. "The good news is that 7 more systems have voted to join the Alliance, including 2 major industrial centers. The bad news is that Admiral Corvin has convinced the Supremacy High Command to commit their reserve fleets to what they're calling the final solution." Dr. Kim frowned. "How final?" "Completely. They're planning to destroy Sanctuary 7 as an example, then systematically eliminate every Alliance world until we surrender unconditionally." A chill ran down Zara's spine. The battle 6 months ago had been brutal but relatively small scale. What Krex was describing would be genocide on an unprecedented scale. "What's our response capability?" Rodriguez asked. "Growing but slowly," Krex admitted. "The Alliance fleet now numbers over 400 ships, but most are converted civilian vessels or older military units. The Supremacy Reserve consists of 1,200 frontline warships." Little Star noticed the serious tone of the conversation and flew over to land on Zara's shoulder, chirping a question. "She wants to know if we're in trouble," Zara translated, having become quite fluent in basic Draknari over the past months. "Tell her," came a familiar voice from behind them, "that trouble is simply opportunity wearing a disguise." They turned to see eldest Mother Shen approaching, accompanied by a being Zara had never seen before. It was roughly humanoid but seemed to be made of living crystal, with internal light patterns that shifted like aurora. "Honored friends," Shen said formally. "May I present Prime Resonance Velthara of the Keltharian Empire?" Zara's eyebrows shot up. The Keltharians had been neutral throughout the conflict, providing minimal aid while carefully avoiding taking sides. For their Prime Resonance to appear here personally was unprecedented. "Greetings, small beings," Velthara said, her crystalline voice carrying harmonic overtones that made the words beautiful to hear. I come with an offer that may change the nature of this conflict. She gestured, and a holographic display appeared showing the galaxy's current political map. Alliance territories were marked in blue, supremacy holdings in red, with large neutral zones in white. The Keltharian Empire has maintained neutrality thus far, because we believed this conflict would burn itself out quickly. We were wrong. The map zoomed in on Alliance territories, showing the extensive trade networks and cooperative projects that had developed. Instead, we observed the emergence of something new, something that challenges our understanding of how civilizations interact. What kind of offer? Shen asked carefully. Full alliance. Military, economic, technological. The Empire's 200 ships, our industrial capacity, our defensive technologies. Velthara paused, her internal lights shifting to what Zara had learned indicated serious contemplation. In exchange, we ask for full membership in your Council of Free Worlds, and a voice in shaping whatever emerges from this war. The implications were staggering. The Keltharian Empire was one of the galaxy's major powers, with technology that rivaled or exceeded the supremacies. Their entry into the war would fundamentally shift the balance of forces. Why now? Krex asked suspiciously. What's changed? Velthara's lights shifted to what might have been amusement. My species has existed for 12 million years, War Leader. We have seen empires rise and fall, witnessed the birth and death of countless civilizations. In all that time, we have never observed anything like what happened here. She gestured toward the garden dome, where the mixed group of children continued playing together, their different species cooperating as naturally as breathing. One human engineer made a choice to protect children who were not her own. That choice created ripples that spread across the galaxy, awakening something we thought was extinct, the possibility that different species could genuinely care about each other's welfare. Zara felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. I just did what anyone would do. No, Velthara said firmly. You did what no one had done for millennia. You acted with pure altruism, without calculation of benefit or cost, and in doing so you proved that such actions were still possible. She turned to address the group. The Keltharian Empire chooses to bet our future on the idea that this new way of thinking represents evolution, rather than temporary insanity. If we are wrong, we will fall with you. If we are right, she gestured again and the holographic map changed. Now it showed potential future configurations, with Alliance influence spreading across most of known space. If we are right, then we witness the birth of the first truly interspecies civilization in galactic history, a society based on mutual aid rather than mutual exploitation. Worth preserving, yes? Little Star chirped excitedly and flew a loop around the hologram, as if celebrating the possibility it represented. There's more, Shen said, her golden eyes bright with anticipation. The Centauri Federation has also been making diplomatic overtures, and we've received messages from 16 minor species asking about alliance membership. The war's not over, Rodriguez pointed out pragmatically. Corvin's final solution could still destroy everything we've built. Wars end, Velthara observed. But ideas are immortal. What began here at Sanctuary 7, what was inspired by one human's compassion, has already spread too far to be stopped by military force alone. Zara looked around at the unlikely group gathered in the garden dome. A human engineer, a former raider turned rebel, a crystalline being 12 million years old, an ancient dragon, a freighter captain turned hero, and a doctor who'd revolutionized interspecies medicine. 6 months ago, most of them had never heard of each other. Now they were family. So what happens next? She asked. Shen's smile was fierce and hopeful. Next, we prepare for the final solution. We gather every ship, every ally, every resource we can find, and we make our stand not just for the Alliance, but for the idea that kindness can triumph over cruelty. Little Star landed on Zara's outstretched hand and chirped something that needed no translation. It was the Dreknari word for together. Looking out at the children playing in the artificial sunshine, representing the future they were all fighting to protect, Zara realized that sometimes the smallest actions really could change the universe. All it took was the courage to care about someone other than yourself. And as unlikely as it seemed, that courage was spreading across the galaxy like wildfire, carried by the simple idea that strangers could become family if you were brave enough to love them. The age of compassion had only just begun. The bridge of the Dreknari flagship hummed with controlled tension as they dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler sector. Through the transparent walls of the command nexus, Zara could see the rebellion world of Sanctuary 7 hanging like a blue-green jewel against the stars. It looked peaceful from this distance, but she knew that 3 supremacy battle groups were already in system. Their demands for surrender transmitted on all frequencies. Contact established with Sanctuary Defense Command, reported Navigator Theiss, her scales shimmering with stress patterns. They're requesting immediate assistance. Eldest Mother Shen stood at the center of the command nexus, her ancient eyes focused on the tactical displays showing ship positions throughout the system. "What's our fleet status?" 17 Crimson flight vessels ready for combat, came the response from War Leader Vex. 12 human ships standing by, including Captain Rodriguez's freighter squadron converted for rescue operations. 6 Caltharian crystal ships providing shield support. Zara watched the tactical display with growing anxiety. Even with their combined forces, they were still outnumbered by the Supremacy Fleet. Worse, this would be the first open battle between the new alliance and an established galactic power. Win or lose, there would be no going back after this. Little Star perched on the command console, her small form tense with worry. She chirped something to Shen, who nodded grimly. "She asks if we're truly ready for what comes next," Shen translated. "Once we engage the supremacy here, we become active combatants in a galactic civil war. And if we don't engage?" Zara asked. War Leader Krex answered from his position at the tactical station. His rebel fleet had arrived an hour earlier, their modified Vakari ships taking defensive positions around the planet. Then the supremacy massacres 3 million civilians to make their point. And every other world considering rebellion learns that the Alliance's protection is worthless. A new voice crackled over the communications array. "Alliance fleet, this is Admiral Thorne of the TCA Defiance. We've just dropped out of hyperspace with emergency reinforcements." Zara's heart leaped as she saw the tactical display update. 23 human vessels, including several Colonial Authority warships, had appeared at the system's edge. It wasn't enough to guarantee victory, but it evened the odds considerably. "Admiral Thorne," Shen responded, "welcome to what may be the most important battle in galactic history." "Understood, Eldest Mother. We're moving to support positions now." "And Admiral?" His voice carried a note of grim determination. "The Colonial Authority Council voted unanimously to authorize this action. We're not here as volunteers anymore. We're here as representatives of humanity's official foreign policy." The implications hit Zara like a physical blow. Humanity wasn't just stumbling into this conflict anymore. They were committing to it fully, knowing that the outcome would determine their place in galactic civilization for generations to come. "Incoming transmission from the Supremacy flagship," Theiss reported. "Admiral Corvin is demanding to speak with Alliance Command." "Put him through," Shen ordered. The holographic display shimmered, revealing a massive Vakari in elaborate military armor. His scarred features twisted with contempt as he took in the mixed Alliance fleet. "So," Admiral Corvin snarled, "the animals have found new pets to hide behind. How fitting that the galaxy's weakest species would ally with its most pathetic." "Admiral Corvin," Shen replied calmly, "you are in violation of 17 different treaties by threatening civilian populations. Withdraw your forces, and this matter can be resolved diplomatically." Corvin's laugh was harsh and ugly. "Diplomacy? From the creatures who once cowered in the shadows pretending to be mining vermin. And humans?" His contempt deepened. "Soft, weak mammals who think kindness is strength. You have no place in a warrior's galaxy." Zara found herself standing up, anger overwhelming her fear. "You're wrong." The Vakari Admiral's attention fixed on her with predatory interest. "And who might you be, little human?" "I'm Zara Chen," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the communication link. "I'm the engineer who saved 5 Dreknari younglings from your raiders 3 weeks ago." Corvin's expression shifted to something like recognition. "Ah, yes. The human whose pathetic gesture started this rebellion. You should have died with the rest of your station's crew, insect." "Maybe," Zara agreed. "But I didn't, and because I didn't, millions of people across the galaxy now know there's an alternative to your way of doing things." She gestured toward the tactical display showing the mixed Alliance fleet. "Look around, Admiral. Humans, Draknari, Caltharians, Rebel Vakari, even some Centauri vessels on the way, species that have never cooperated before, working together because they've seen proof that there's a better way." "Working together to do what?" Corvin demanded. "To coddle the weak? To reward failure? To pretend that compassion can stand against superior force? To protect innocent people from bullies like you? Zara shot back. To prove that strength used for protection is better than strength used for domination. To show that kindness isn't weakness, it's courage. Corvin's expression darkened dangerously. Fine words, human. Let's see how they sound when your fleet is burning wreckage around a dead world. The transmission cut off, and warning alarms began blaring throughout the bridge. Supremacy forces are moving to attack formation, Vex reported. All vessels, prepare for combat. Shen placed a gentle hand on Zara's shoulder. That was well said, but you realize you've probably just started the bloodiest war this galaxy has seen in centuries? Zara looked around at the beings working together on the bridge. Draknari and humans side by side, with even Krex's rebels integrated into the command structure. Despite everything, she felt a strange sense of peace. Then, at least it's a war worth fighting, she said. Little Star chirped, something that made several of the Draknari bridge crew chuckle despite the tension. What did she say? Zara asked. She said that her bond sister talks too much but fights for the right reasons, Shen translated with a smile. And that she's proud to face battle beside someone so magnificently stubborn. The tactical display showed the Supremacy fleet accelerating toward them, weapon systems charging. But it also showed something else. Additional ships dropping out of hyperspace, bearing the markings of species from across the galaxy. The message was spreading and others were choosing sides. All ships, this is Eldest Mother Shen. The ancient dragon's voice carried across the communication channels to every vessel in the Alliance fleet. Today we fight not for conquest or glory, but for the radical idea that the strong should protect the weak rather than exploit them. We fight for the hope that kindness can triumph over cruelty. She paused, her golden eyes finding Zara's. We fight because one human engineer showed us that ordinary people can choose to be extraordinary, and because that choice made in a moment of crisis can change the course of history. The first energy beams began crossing the space between the fleets, brilliant lances of light that heralded the beginning of a new age. All ships, Shen commanded, engage the enemy. Let's show the galaxy what alliance really means. As the battle erupted around them, Zara couldn't help but think that somehow, despite the violence and chaos, this felt like the most hopeful moment of her life. They were fighting for something worth preserving, and win or lose, they were doing it together. Little Star chirped once more, and this time Zara understood without translation. It was the Draknari word for family. Looking around at the mixed crew working desperately to coordinate their defense of Sanctuary 7, Zara realized that Little Star was absolutely right. This was what family looked like when it spanned the stars. 3 weeks after the revelation at the Galactic Council, Zara found herself standing in the observation deck of a massive space station she'd never heard of before. Outside the transparent aluminum windows, ships from dozens of species moved in carefully choreographed patterns, their running lights creating a constellation of diplomatic activity. "Welcome to Haven Station," said Captain Rodriguez, the same freighter Captain Eldest Mother Shen had mentioned in her records. He'd arrived 2 days ago with a small fleet of human vessels, all volunteering to help with what the media was calling the Dragon Crisis. "I still can't believe all this started because I helped some scared kids," Zara muttered, watching a massive Keltharian crystal ship dock with the station's central hub. Little Star, perched on her usual spot on Zara's shoulder, chirped what sounded like disagreement. Over the past weeks, Zara had started to understand some basic Draknari without translation, and Little Star's comment roughly translated to, "Stubborn human doesn't understand destiny." She's right. You know, Dr. Sarah Kim approached from across the observation deck, her medical scanner in hand. She'd been running health checks on the mixed crews working together for the first time in galactic history. "What you did wasn't just helping kids. You changed the fundamental equation of galactic politics." Zara shook her head. "All I did was lead some raiders away from 5 younglings. How does that change anything for billions of people?" "Because," came a familiar voice from behind them, "you proved that humans are capable of true altruism." They turned to see Eldest Mother Shen approaching, accompanied by a being Zara didn't recognize. It looked vaguely reptilian but stood upright, with intelligent eyes and decorative scarring across its scaled hide. "Zara Chen," Shen said formally. "May I present War Leader Krex of the Vrakari Rebellion?" Zara blinked in surprise. Rebellion? Krex stepped forward, his movement careful and respectful. When he spoke, his voice carried none of the harsh aggression Zara associated with Vakari raiders. Honored human, he said in heavily accented standard, I come to apologize for the actions of my people at your station, and to offer explanation for why your kindness has shattered my civilization. I don't understand. Shen gestured toward a nearby seating area. Perhaps we should sit. This explanation requires some context. Once they were settled, Krex began his story. The Vakari supremacy that attacked your station represents only one faction of my people. We are a warrior race, yes, but we were not always raiders and murderers. He activated a small holographic projector, showing images of what looked like a very different Vakari society. Cities of gleaming metal, warriors protecting civilians, scenes of cooperation and honor. Long ago, we were the galaxy's peacekeepers. We fought to protect the weak, to maintain order, to ensure justice. But power corrupts, and eventually we became what we once fought against. The images shifted, showing darker scenes. Conquest, subjugation, the strong dominating the weak. For 3 centuries, the supremacy has ruled through fear and violence. They taught our children that compassion is weakness, that mercy is failure, that only the strong deserve to survive. Zara felt a chill. What does this have to do with me? Everything, Krex said simply. When word spread that a human had risked her life to protect Draknari younglings, when the story reached our homeworld, something unprecedented happened. He paused, seeming to search for words. Our youth began to question everything they had been taught. If a weak human could show such courage, if animal Draknari could command such powerful fleets, then perhaps the supremacy's teachings were wrong. The hologram now showed riots in Vakari cities, young warriors marching with banners depicting the ancient peacekeeping symbols. 17 worlds have declared rebellion against the supremacy, Krex continued. Millions of young Vakari are abandoning the old ways, seeking to return to our honorable past. Your actions at Station Omega-7 have become their rallying cry. Little Star chirped something, and Shen translated with obvious amusement. She says humans are very good at accidentally starting revolutions. This is insane, Zara protested. I'm nobody special. I'm just an engineer who couldn't walk away from kids in trouble. Exactly, Shen said gently. In a galaxy where every action is calculated for political advantage, where kindness comes with price tags and compassion requires contracts, you acted without thought of reward. That kind of pure altruism is so rare that its mere existence changes everything. Captain Rodriguez nodded from where he'd been listening. It's like Dr. Kim sharing her medical research for free, or my evacuation of that Keltharian colony. Individually, they seemed like small gestures. But together they prove that humans are fundamentally different from other species, Shen finished. Not better necessarily, but different in ways that challenge every assumption about how galactic civilization works. Dr. Kim pulled up her own data pad. I've been analyzing the communication traffic since the crisis began. 7 minor species have formally requested to join the Terran Colonial Authority. 3 major powers have opened diplomatic channels they'd kept closed for decades. And the Centauri Federation is completely restructuring their foreign policy. Because of me? Zara's voice was small. Because of what you represent, Krex corrected. Hope that there might be another way. That strength can be used to protect rather than dominate. That compassion might not be weakness after all. Little Star flew from Zara's shoulder to land on the table between them, chittering urgently. Shen listened, then smiled. She reminds us that we're not just here to discuss philosophy. The immediate crisis requires decisions. Shen activated her own holographic display, showing the current political map of the galaxy. Large sections were colored red, indicating Draknari influence. Blue sections marked human territory. But now there were patches of green scattered throughout, and the pattern was spreading. The species aligning themselves with what they're calling the Compassion Alliance, Shen explained. Worlds and civilizations that want to try a different approach to galactic relations. One based on mutual aid rather than mutual exploitation. How many? Rodriguez asked. Currently 47 worlds and 12 major space stations, Dr. Kim reported. But the number grows daily. Zara stared at the map, overwhelmed. And they're doing this because you proved that ordinary people can choose to be extraordinary, Shen said. And that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe is someone who cares more about doing right than staying safe. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. Shen accepted it, and Ambassador Vasquez's image appeared in the hologram. Eldest Mother, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation developing in the Kepler sector. 3 supremacy battle groups are moving toward Sanctuary 7, one of the rebellion worlds. They're demanding the surrender of what they're calling human corrupted traitors. Krex growled low in his throat. They mean to make an example, to show that rebellion leads only to death. How long until they arrive? Shen asked. 18 hours, Vasquez replied. The rebellion forces in that sector are brave, but they're outgunned 5-1. Shen looked around the table, her golden eyes thoughtful. Recommendations? We can't let them massacre civilians, Rodriguez said immediately. If the alliance means anything, we have to protect people who are trying to change. Dr. Kim nodded. I agree, but we're talking about military action against a sovereign power. This could start a war. The war has already started, Krex said grimly. The question is whether we fight it with honor or allow evil to triumph through inaction. All eyes turned to Zara. She felt the weight of their expectations, the knowledge that her words might determine the fate of billions. Little Star chirped once softly. This time Zara understood without translation. She's asking if I'm ready to do the right thing again, even if it's scary. Zara stood up, her decision crystallizing with painful clarity. We can't let the supremacy murder people whose only crime was believing they could be better. She looked around at the faces watching her. If protecting innocent people makes us enemies of the supremacy, then I guess that's what we are. Shen's smile was fierce and proud. Then we'd better prepare for war, Zara Chen. Because what happens at Sanctuary 7 will determine whether compassion has a future in this galaxy. Outside the windows, the ships of the new alliance began changing course, their formation shifting from diplomatic convoy to battle fleet. The Age of Kindness was about to face its first real test. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened just 18 hours after the incident at Station Madar, Omega 7. Representatives from 43 major civilizations filled the vast chamber on Nexus Prime, their various forms creating a symphony of colors, shapes, and sizes that never failed to amaze visitors. But today there was no wonder in the air. Only tension thick enough to cut with a plasma blade. Ambassador Elena Vasquez of the Terran Colonial Authority sat in the human delegation section, her dark eyes scanning the crowd. As humanity's chief diplomatic representative, she'd seen her share of crises, but nothing quite like this. The chair recognizes Ambassador Theklos of the Vrakari Supremacy, announced the session moderator, a towering crystalline being whose voice resonated through harmonic frequencies. The Vrakari ambassador rose, his reptilian features twisted with barely contained fury. Honored colleagues, he began, his translator rendering his harsh language into smooth standard. Yesterday's unprovoked attack on our vessels represents an act of war against sovereign Vrakari forces, engaged in legitimate salvage operations. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Helena leaned forward, her translator earpiece feeding her whispered conversations from various delegations. Salvage operations? The speaker was Ambassador Keth of the Keltharian Empire, her crystalline form crackling with indignation. Your raiders murdered 17 beings and looted a mining station. That is hardly salvage. The station was broadcasting distress signals, Teklos countered. Our forces responded in good faith to render aid. They were then attacked without warning by an unknown military force of significant capability. Elena stood, her movement drawing attention throughout the chamber. If I may address the council? The moderator's harmonic tones shifted to acknowledgement. The chair recognizes Ambassador Vasquez of the Terran Colonial Authority. Thank you. Elena's voice carried clearly through the chamber's acoustics. Before we discuss military actions, perhaps we should address the fundamental facts. Station Omega 7 was a registered human mining operation under Colonial Authority jurisdiction. The 17 dead beings Ambassador Theklos mentioned were my people. A hush fell over the assembly. Elena continued, her voice steady despite the grief she felt. According to the station's final transmission logs, Vrakari raiders attacked without warning, murdered the crew, and began systematic looting. The only survivor was a human engineer named Zara Chen, who managed to hide until assistance arrived. Assistance from whom? This came from Ambassador Veltar of the Centauri Federation, his insectoid features clicking with agitation. No human vessels were in that sector. No colonial authority forces responded to the distress call. Elena took a breath. This was the moment that would change everything. The assistance came from the Draknari. The chamber erupted. Delegates leaped from their seats, translation devices struggling to keep up with the cacophony of voices in dozens of languages. The moderator's harmonic tones rose to an almost painful pitch as he called for order. Impossible, Theklos snarled. The Draknari are animals. They have no military capability. With respect, Elena said once the noise died down. That assessment appears to have been inaccurate. She activated her personal holographic display, projecting images that had been transmitted from Station Omega-7's external sensors before the communication blackout. The assembled delegates gasped as they saw the Crimson Fleet in all its terrible beauty. 17 capital ships, Elena continued, narrating the footage. Unknown configuration, clearly advanced technology. They appeared without warning, neutralized the Vrikari raiders' weapon systems and prevented further casualties. Where did these ships come from? Demanded Ambassador Keth. Our deep space sensors detected no fleet movements in that sector. According to the survivors' testimony, Elena said carefully, they responded to a distress call from a group of Draknari younglings who were working at the mining station. Apparently, there are aspects of Draknari society that the galactic community has misunderstood. Ambassador Veltar's compound eyes focused on Elena with laser intensity. Are you suggesting that humanity has formed some sort of alliance with a previously unknown military power? I'm suggesting, Elena replied, that one human being showed kindness to some frightened children. Everything else follows from that. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Then Theklos stepped forward, his massive frame radiating menace. You cannot seriously expect this council to believe that a pack of mining vermin somehow summoned a battle fleet to avenge their wounded feelings. Before Elena could respond, a new voice cut through the chamber. Deep, resonant, and carrying an authority that made every delegate's spine stiffen instinctively. Perhaps, the voice said, you should hear the explanation from the source. Every head turned toward the chamber's main entrance, where a figure in flowing robes was approaching the central speaking platform. She was tall and graceful, clearly humanoid but not quite human. When she lowered her hood, gasps echoed throughout the assembly. Golden eyes surveyed the gathered delegates with ancient wisdom. Scaled skin caught the chamber's lights like polished metal, and when she smiled, her teeth gleamed sharp as diamonds. Honored representatives, she said, her voice carrying easily to every corner of the vast space.
I am eldest Mother Shen of the Crimson Flight.
I come before you today to speak for my people and to address the misconceptions that have persisted for far too long. The crystalline moderator's harmonics stuttered. This is highly irregular. The Draknari have no official standing in this council. No, Shen agreed pleasantly. We do not. We chose long ago to remain in the shadows, to let you believe us diminished and harmless. But recent events have forced us to reconsider that policy. She gestured, and the air above the speaking platform shimmered. A three-dimensional map of the galaxy appeared, showing the locations of every major civilization. But scattered throughout like scattered rubies were hundreds of red dots. For 8 centuries, my people have lived among you. We have mined your asteroids, traded in your markets, and contributed to your societies. You saw us as simple creatures, barely above animals in intelligence. We allowed this fiction because it served our purposes. The map zoomed in on various red dots showing bustling cities, trading posts, and mining operations. In each one, small Draknari moved among other species, working and living seemingly normal lives. But we never forgot what we were, and we never stopped watching over our own. Ambassador Theklos found his voice. Are you claiming responsibility for the attack on our vessels? Shen's golden eyes fixed on him with chilling intensity. I am claiming responsibility for protecting innocent younglings from your salvage operation, just as I would claim responsibility for protecting any child of any species from such brutality. You had no right. I had every right. Shen's voice carried the weight of eons. By the ancient laws that governed this galaxy before your species crawled from their respective primordial seas, the protection of children is not just a right but a sacred duty. Elena watched the exchange with growing amazement. Shen was dismantling centuries of galactic assumptions with surgical precision. The human engineer, Zara Chen, Shen continued, risked her life to protect 5 of our younglings when she could have saved herself. In doing so, she invoked compacts that predate your civilizations. Compacts that bind my people to respond with our full strength when such courage is shown. The chamber buzzed with whispered conversations as delegates struggled to process this information. What exactly are you saying? Ambassador Keth asked carefully. Shen's smile was both beautiful and terrifying. I am saying that humanity has awakened something ancient, honored ambassador. By showing compassion to our young, they have earned our protection. By standing against those who would harm innocents, they have gained our friendship. She gestured again and the galactic map changed. Now lines of light connected the red dots, forming a network that spanned known space. 1,700 ships, she said simply. Each one crewed by warriors who remember when we ruled the stars. Each one willing to die before allowing harm to come to those we have sworn to protect. The silence in the chamber was deafening. So, when you ask about humanity's new alliance, Shen continued, looking directly at Veltar, understand this. It was not negotiated by politicians or purchased with trade agreements. It was earned by a single human being who chose kindness over survival. She turned to address the entire assembly. The question before you now is simple. Will you adjust your understanding of this galaxy's balance of power peacefully, or will you require more dramatic demonstrations of what awakened dragons can accomplish? Elena realized she was holding her breath. Around the chamber, some of the most powerful beings in the galaxy were doing the same. The age of secrets, she realized, was definitely over. The Draknari flagship was unlike anything Zara had ever imagined. From the outside, it looked like flowing liquid metal shaped into the form of a massive dragon, complete with swept-back wings that somehow served as both solar collectors and weapon arrays. But inside, it was a marvel of organic engineering that seemed to grow rather than be built. Eldest Mother Shen led Zara through corridors that curved like arteries, their walls pulsing gently with bioluminescent patterns. The ship felt alive, responding to their presence with subtle shifts in lighting and temperature. Your technology, Zara breathed, running her hand along a wall that felt warm to the touch. It's biological, isn't it? Symbiotic, Shen corrected. We grow our ships rather than build them. They are partners, not tools. This one has been my companion for over 3 centuries. Little Star perched on Zara's shoulder, occasionally chirping what sounded like commentary as they walked. The other younglings had been taken to what Shen called the nursery pods to recover from their ordeal. They entered a vast chamber at the ship's heart, and Zara gasped. The walls were transparent, offering a panoramic view of space around them. But more impressive was the chamber itself, filled with floating holographic displays showing star maps, tactical information, and streams of data in languages she couldn't read. Welcome to the Command Nexus, Shen said. From here, we coordinate the activities of 1,700 active ships across known space. 1,700? Zara stared at the displays in amazement. But the galactic authorities think there are maybe 50 Draknari vessels total. Shen's laugh was musical but carried an edge of bitterness. The galactic authorities see what we allow them to see. For 800 years we have maintained the illusion of being a dying race, mining the bones of our own civilization for scraps. She gestured to one of the displays, which showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red dots scattered across it like stars, each one pulsing with life. Every dot represents a Draknari cell. Miners, traders, explorers, scientists. They live humble lives, contribute to galactic society, and are generally ignored by the greater powers. Her expression hardened, but each cell is also a watchpost, a guardian. When danger threatens the innocent, we respond. Like today, Zara said, like today. The pack you saved sent out a distress call the moment the raiders boarded your station. Within minutes, every Draknari ship within a 50 light-year radius began converging on your location. Little Star chirped something, and Shen's expression softened. Little Star says you were very brave. She wants to know if all humans are like you. Zara felt her cheeks warm. I'm not special. I couldn't walk away. They needed help. Precisely. Shen moved to another display, this one showing what looked like historical records. Images of great battles, peaceful negotiations, and acts of heroism scrolled past. This is why your species fascinates us, Zara Chen. The display focused on more recent images, showing humans in various situations across the galaxy. Zara recognized some of the scenes from news reports she'd seen over the years. 3 years ago, a human freighter captain named Rodriguez risked his ship to evacuate a Keltharian colony from a solar flare. Last year, Dr. Sarah Kim shared her medical research freely with 17 different species, refusing all payment. 6 months ago, a human mining crew on Kepler 442 chose to work double shifts to help a Centauri family pay their medical bills. Zara shook her head. Those are just random acts of kindness. Every species has people who— No. Shen's interruption was gentle but firm. Every species has individuals capable of kindness when it serves their interests. What makes humans unique is your willingness to sacrifice for strangers, with no expectation of reward. She gestured to another display, this one showing statistical analysis. In the 800 years since humanity joined galactic society, you have initiated first contact with 47 previously unknown species. In every single case, your initial approach was peaceful. You offered aid, knowledge, or friendship before asking for anything in return. That's just common sense, Zara protested. Why would we immediately assume hostility? Because, Shen said sadly, that is what every other species does. The Vrikari assume others are prey. The Keltharians assume others are threats. The Centauri assume others are competitors. Humans are the only species that consistently assumes others might be friends. Little Star chirped again, more insistently this time. Shen listened to the rapid series of sounds, then nodded. She reminds me that I'm avoiding the most important part of this conversation. Shen's expression grew serious. Zara, your actions today have awakened something that has slept for centuries. By protecting our young, you have invoked the ancient compact. What compact? Long ago, before the Great War that shattered our empire, the Draknari made a sacred vow. We swore that any who showed true kindness to our children would be considered family. And family. She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. Family we protect with our lives. The implications hit Zara like a physical blow. You're saying that by helping those 5 younglings, I've somehow allied humanity with your entire hidden civilization? Not allied, Shen corrected, bonded. The compact is not a political agreement. It is a blood oath written into our very DNA. From this moment forward, any threat to humanity is a threat to the Draknari. Any attack on human worlds will bring our full response. Zara sank into one of the chamber's floating seats, her mind reeling. But that could start a war. If the galaxy's major powers find out that humans have the backing of a hidden dragon empire, they will need to reconsider many of their assumptions, Shen agreed. The question is whether they will do so peacefully or through conflict. What about the Vrikari raiders? Won't they tell people what they saw? Shen's smile was predatory. The Vrikari have a choice. They can swear blood oaths to speak nothing of what they have witnessed, undergo memory modification, and spend the rest of their lives in exile working to repay their crimes. Or— She didn't need to finish the sentence. The universe is changing, Zara Chen, Shen continued. Ancient powers are stirring. The comfortable balance that has existed for centuries is beginning to shift. Humanity's compassion has lit a beacon that will be seen across the galaxy. Little Star flew from Zara's shoulder to hover in front of her face, chittering urgently. She wants to know if you understand what this means, Shen translated. You are no longer just Zara Chen, human engineer. You are Zara Chen, first friend of the Crimson Flight, bond sister to the Star Dragons, guardian chosen of the ancient compact. Zara looked around the incredible command chamber, at the displays showing hundreds of hidden ships, at the eldest whose golden eyes held the wisdom of ages. Then she looked at Little Star, no bigger than her thumb but radiating fierce loyalty. I still don't understand why helping them was such a big deal, she said finally. They were just scared kids who needed someone to stand up for them. Shen's expression grew infinitely gentle. And that, dear Zara, is exactly why the compact exists. In a galaxy full of beings who calculate the cost of kindness, you acted without thought of reward. That kind of pure compassion is rarer than antimatter, and more precious than any technology we possess. The ship's gentle humming changed pitch, and one of the displays lit up with an incoming communication. It seems, Shen said, that word of today's events is already spreading. 3 different galactic news networks are requesting interviews about the mysterious fleet that appeared at Station Omega-7. The Terran Colonial Authority wants to know why their mining station went dark. And the Keltharian Empire is demanding explanations for what they're calling an illegal military action in neutral space. Zara felt a knot of worry form in her stomach. What do we tell them? We tell them the truth, Shen said simply. that the Age of Secrets is ending, that humanity has awakened something ancient and powerful by showing kindness where others would show indifference, and that the galaxy will never be quite the same again. Little Star chirped once more, and despite everything, Zara found herself smiling. What did she say this time? She said, Shen translated with obvious amusement, that she is proud to have chosen such a wonderfully stubborn human as her bond sister, and that she cannot wait to see what happens next. Looking out at the stars through the transparent walls, Zara realized she couldn't wait either. The station shuddered as something massive docked with the main airlock. The Vrkari raiders who had cornered Zara were now backing away from her, their predatory confidence replaced by pure terror. "We need to get off this station," the lead raider muttered, speaking into his comm device. "Abort the mission." "Repeat, abort the mission," Static answered him. The Crimson ships had apparently jammed their communications as effectively as the raiders had jammed the stations. Zara slumped against the viewport, adrenaline finally catching up with her. Her legs felt like water, and she could barely believe she was still alive. Through the small window, she watched the beautiful red ships holding position around the station like guardian angels. "Human," the lead Vrkari said, his voice no longer holding its earlier menace. "You helped Dreknari, yes? The small red ones?" Zara nodded warily, unsure where this was going. The raider's expression shifted to something almost like respect. "Then you may live through what comes next. The Red Protectors, they are particular about their young." Before Zara could ask what he meant, the lights went out completely. Emergency power kicked in a second later, but in that moment of darkness she heard something that made her skin crawl. Footsteps in the corridor beyond, but not the heavy boots of raiders or station crew. These footsteps were different, measured, deliberate, and they carried an undertone of barely controlled fury. When the emergency lights flickered back on, 3 figures stood at the entrance to the service corridor. Zara's breath caught in her throat. They were humanoid, but clearly not human. 7 feet tall, with powerful builds that spoke of both strength and speed. Their skin had a subtle scaled texture that caught the light like polished crimson metal, but it was their eyes that made Zara's heart skip a beat. Golden eyes, exactly like the small Dreknari she'd been protecting, but ancient and intelligent and currently blazing with cold anger. The Vrkari raiders pressed themselves against the walls, weapons forgotten. "Eldest Mother Shen," the lead raider stammered. "We did not know. The younglings, we never touched them. We swear by the void, we never—" The center figure raised one clawed hand and the raider's words died in his throat. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of eons and the promise of violence. "You invaded a sanctuary world. You killed innocents, and you threatened the brooding grounds." Her golden gaze fixed on each raider in turn. "The only question now is whether you die quickly or slowly." "Please," another raider begged. "We didn't know there were younglings here. The mining company said they were just workers, not breeders. We would never have—" Silence. The word cracked like a whip. "Your ignorance is not forgiveness." The eldest's attention turned to Zara, and those ancient eyes softened slightly. "Human, you protected our young when you could have saved yourself. This is noted." Zara found her voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. "They're safe, the pack. I led these guys away from them. They should still be in Cargo Bay 7 behind the containers." Something like approval flickered across the eldest's features. "Speak truly, small one. Did any of your kind aid in this attack?" "No," Zara said firmly. "The human crew tried to fight when the raiders boarded. Most of them—" She swallowed hard. "Most of them didn't make it." The eldest nodded slowly. "Then you will be compensated for your losses and honored for your courage." She turned back to the Vrkari with cold finality. "Take them to the ships. The council will decide their fate." The 2 other Dreknari moved forward, and Zara realized they weren't just escorts. They were soldiers, trained and dangerous, moving with liquid grace despite their size. The raiders offered no resistance as they were efficiently restrained and led away. "Come, brave human," the eldest said, gesturing for Zara to follow. "Let us retrieve our young, and then we will speak of what has transpired here." They made their way through the station's corridors, and Zara was amazed by how different everything felt now. The oppressive fear that had dominated the last few hours was gone, replaced by a sense of safety she hadn't felt since the attack began. "I have to ask," Zara said as they walked. "The galaxy thinks the Dreknari are barely sentient."
"How do you have a fleet?"
How do you have technology like this?
The eldest's expression grew sad. Your species is young, human. You see the universe as it is now, not as it was. Once my people ruled the stars. We were the guardians of 1,000 worlds, the protectors of the innocent. They entered Cargo Bay 7, and Zara heard soft chirping sounds from behind the containers. The pack was still there, still hiding where she'd left them. But power corrupts even when wielded with good intentions. The eldest continued. We grew arrogant, believed our own mythology, and when the Great War came, we fell harder than any empire before us. The small Draknari emerged from their hiding spot, and Zara's heart clenched at their obvious relief. They flew directly to the eldest, surrounding her with grateful chirps and cries. What happened to them? Zara asked, watching the reunion. We chose exile, the eldest said, gently touching each of the younglings in turn. Those who survived the war went into hiding, scattered across the galaxy as miners and traders and forgotten wanderers. We let the galaxy believe we had been reduced to simple animals. She looked up at Zara with those ancient golden eyes. But we never forgot our duty. We watch over our young, wherever they may be. And when they are threatened, she gestured toward the viewport where the Crimson Fleet waited in silent majesty. We remember what we once were. The smallest Draknari, the one barely larger than Zara's thumb, flew over and landed on her shoulder. It nuzzled against her cheek with obvious affection. It seems you have made a friend, the eldest observed. Little Star has chosen you as packmate. This is a great honor. Zara gently stroked the tiny dragon's head with one finger. What happens now? Now, the eldest said, we return our young to safety.
And you, brave human, will be offered a choice.
You can return to your old life with compensation for your losses and our eternal gratitude. Or, the eldest's smile revealed sharp teeth, but her expression was kind. Or you can learn the truth about the galaxy, about the ancient pacts and hidden powers that shape the stars, about why humanity's arrival has awakened things that have slept for millennia. Zara looked down at Little Star, who chirped encouragingly at her. Then she looked around at the other younglings, at their faces full of trust and hope. Finally, she met the eldest's golden gaze. I think, she said slowly, I'd like to know the truth. The eldest nodded approvingly. Then welcome, Zara Chen, to the real galaxy. Your education begins now. Zara Chen pressed her back against the cold metal wall of the cargo bay, her heart hammering against her ribs. The mining station's emergency lights cast everything in a hellish red glow, and the screaming had finally stopped. That was somehow worse than when it had been going on. She clutched the emergency beacon in her sweaty palm, knowing it was useless. The Vrakari raiders had jammed all communications the moment they'd boarded Station Omega 7. 3 hours ago, she'd been just another human engineer trying to make ends meet on the edge of civilized space. Now she was the only thing standing between a pack of terrified aliens and certain death. The pack huddled behind her in the shadows, between massive cargo containers, 5 Draknari, each no bigger than her forearm. Their crimson scales dulled with fear and exhaustion. They looked like tiny dragons from Earth's old myths, complete with delicate wings and jeweled eyes that now held nothing but terror. Zara had found them in Maintenance Bay 12, trapped behind a collapsed bulkhead. The eldest, barely the size of her hand, had spoken to her in broken standard. Please, human friend. Raiders come, we hide. Protect younglings. She should have kept walking. Should have found her own hiding spot and waited for rescue that might never come. The Draknari were prey species, barely sentient according to most galactic classifications. They were miners, brought to the station because their small size let them access narrow ore veins. Nobody would expect a human to risk her life for them. But when she'd looked into those terrified golden eyes, she'd heard herself saying, "Okay, I'll help you." Heavy footsteps echoed through the cargo bay. Vrakari voices growled in their harsh language, and Zara caught enough words to make her blood run cold. They were hunting survivors for sport now that they'd finished looting the valuable equipment. The smallest Draknari, barely larger than her thumb, whimpered softly. Its mother quickly pressed it close to her chest, but the damage was done. The footsteps stopped. What was that? A Vrakari voice snarled, and Standard Zara's mind raced. The emergency beacon in her hand gave her an idea. It was a desperate, probably suicidal idea, but it was all she had. Stay here, she whispered to the pack. No matter what happens, don't move until I come back for you. Before she could lose her nerve, she activated the beacon and threw it as hard as she could toward the far end of the cargo bay. It clattered against a container and began its shrill emergency tone. The Vrikari rushed toward the sound with thundering footsteps. Zara used the distraction to slip deeper into the maze of containers, leading the raiders away from the Draknari pack. Her engineering training served her well as she navigated the complex layout, always staying just ahead of her pursuers. "Clever little human," one of the raiders called out. "But you only delay the inevitable. We will find you, and when we do, you will wish you had died quickly with the others." Zara's hand shook as she climbed up a maintenance ladder, but her voice was steady when she called back. "You want me? Come and get me, ugly." The taunting worked. The Vrikari abandoned their systematic search and gave chase with furious roars. They were stronger and better armed. But Zara knew every inch of these maintenance tunnels. She led them on a wild chase through 3 different decks, using every trick she could think of to buy time. But eventually, her luck ran out. She found herself cornered in a dead-end service corridor, 3 massive Vrikari blocking her only escape route. Their predatory eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "Nowhere left to run, little engineer," the leader growled, raising his energy weapon. "Any last words?" Zara lifted her chin defiantly, even though her knees were shaking. "Yeah, I hope those little dragons remember that at least one human thought they were worth saving." The Vrikari laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Dragons? You risked your pathetic life for a pack of Draknari vermin. How wonderfully stupid." As the raider's finger tightened on the trigger, Zara closed her eyes and thought of 5 pairs of golden eyes trusting her to keep them safe. At least she'd given them a chance. In a galaxy that saw her species as violent primitives and theirs as barely sentient animals, maybe that small act of compassion meant something. The energy blast never came. Instead, she heard a sound that made her eyes snap open in disbelief, a low harmonic thrumming that seemed to vibrate through the station's hull itself. The Vrikari had frozen, their faces twisted with sudden fear. "Impossible," the leader whispered. "The Crimson Fleet was destroyed centuries ago." The thrumming grew louder, and through the service corridor's small viewport, Zara saw something that defied everything she thought she knew about the galaxy. Ships. Dozens of them, sleek and deadly, their hulls gleaming like fresh blood in the starlight. They moved with predatory grace, surrounding the Vrikari raider vessel like wolves circling wounded prey. And on each ship's hull, painted in flowing script that seemed to pulse with its own inner light, was the same symbol, a stylized dragon with wings spread wide, protecting something precious beneath its claws. The Draknari had called for help, and help had answered, but that was impossible. The Draknari were a prey species, barely capable of spaceflight beyond their simple mining vessels. They had no military, no fleet, no way to... The lead Vrikari's weapon clattered to the floor as his hands began to shake. "The protectors," he breathed. "The red protectors have returned." Zara pressed herself against the viewport, staring at the magnificent fleet in wonder and growing hope. Whatever was happening, whoever these red protectors were, their arrival had just changed everything. The question was, would they arrive in time to save one foolish human engineer who decided that compassion was worth more than survival?